What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Debate Room of season 2023. Today, I would like to talk about new teams. Like you've seen the image behind, we have Audi. Audi is coming into F1 by taking majority of the Sauber Grand Prix team based in Switzerland. A team that they already have cooperation with, I think for some time already. They use the wind tunnel, which Sauber in theory has one of the best wind tunnels in F1. Or, if I am not mistaken, unless any other teams changed it, Sauber is the only F1 team that has a one-on-one scale wind tunnel. Other teams have lower scales. Sauber is the only one that can actually test one-on-one, or one-one, however you want to call it, scale. Something Audi obviously has been using for some time. So, as you know, there is a rule change coming up in 2026, and Audi is already confirmed to join with the Sauber facilities and everything. They will not have to start from scratch. They can use the engineers and everything. However, they will take control of the whole operation and stuff. Something Porsche was also trying to do. First with Red Bull, but they refused because Porsche wants a 51% control of the team, so they can call the shots. Something Red Bull doesn't want. I think they were also trying with McLaren, but McLaren also refused to do that. They don't want to sell the team to somebody, right? They want to be the ones calling the shots. And for now, Porsche is on hold on what's going to happen. I say these two names at the beginning, and mainly because they are constructors. They will not only bring the power unit, they want everything. They have the budget, they have the experience, right? In motor racing, they are not just here coming to introduce their name as something, right? I'm surprised to see that Porsche is not trying to go for Williams. Seeing that Williams is a private team, and actually they could use it to try to bring the car back to the front. Williams is a team that has been suffering for some years now, thanks to the new rules and everything. We can see Alex Albon is, especially Alex Albon, I'm saying, because he's the one that has the experience and can push the team forward, right? He's somewhere there in around P10 in these races. I'm surprised to see that Porsche is not going for Williams, if I can be honest. Which I think would be a team that could be more in a position to agree to something like that, to try to bring the name back to the front. Even though, if I'm not mistaken, when Claire Williams or the Williams family sold the team to this American investment company, I think after 2026 or 8 or something like this, there's like a amount of years in which they will keep the name Williams of the team, but after that they can change it. So if Porsche comes into the game at that point, why not use the Williams team, for example? Or try to buy Alpha Tauri, right? We know Red Bull is trying to sell Alpha Tauri, they want to get rid of the team. Or if there is an offer that comes to purchase the team, they will be eager to listen to it. Why not go for Alpha Tauri? Anyway, just opinions. So let's check other teams that are planning to come into F1 as new teams. No, not purchasing teams, but as new teams. And the first one, obviously, it's Andretti, right? The complication with Andretti, and we saw already some statements done by Michael Andretti about how the 10 teams that already exist in the grid are very greedy and don't allow other teams to come in. The problem with Andretti coming into F1 and why they cannot come so far, or they cannot be approved, is that as far as I know, for a new team to join the F1 grid, all the other teams must say yes. And right now, not all the other teams will say yes. Why? Because there is a money split at the end of the year with Disney regulations and everything that will be done, like they will give a base amount equal to everybody, and then according to the results, you will have more money, right? Right now, with 10 teams, and as per 2022, it's the first season where every single team was able to make profit. This is something important for F1, seeing that how, if you check, like for example, in the 90s or the 80s, anybody could bring a team into the F1 and kind of keep it, right? But then, in the end of the 90s and 2000s, having an F1 team became extremely expensive, especially since the material carbon fiber started to substitute any other materials for the chassis, right? That's just one example. The engines got expensive, the technology got expensive, the trips and everything. F1 teams are very crazy expensive right now. If we didn't have the budget cost, the cost cap, or however you want to call it, it would have been very difficult for teams like Williams, for example, to survive, or Haas, right? And I say Haas, but Haas does have the backup of Ferrari. They buy technology from them, which is something that F1 allowed, or the FIA, or however you want to call it, allowed in order to try to bring new teams into F1, or the grid was going to start getting shorter and shorter. And of course, a private team like Andretti doesn't have the capability that perhaps Red Bull or Mercedes had in the past, right? Where they were spending over $300 million dollars or euros, whatever you want to use. If you don't have that budget, you cannot fight with these people. And Mercedes was a constructor. Red Bull kind of was a constructor as well, but their budget was crazy. Williams was fighting with a budget of maybe less than 100 million. So, of course, you cannot fight with that. So anyway, Andretti has the problem that all the other teams will say no. Why? Because of the money. If a new team comes in, means they have to split the share, which means all the teams will get less money. And maybe some teams like Haas or Williams or AlphaTauri do not want that, right? Or some other teams like Mercedes or Red Bull, that they need the money, they need to spend the money. These are teams that have big expenses, right? And these have to be considered. They do not include the driver's salaries. So, yeah. Andretti, in theory, is the best positioned one because, number one, they are from the USA, and the F1 right now is trying to focus in the USA market. You can see now we have 4 races, right? 4 races or 3? Miami, Austin, and Las Vegas. 3 races, sorry. We have 3 races in the USA. They are trying to force that market. Having a team as prestigious and big as Andretti in the F1 grid, with the new regulations and everything, which in theory makes it easier for teams to be able to join, right? Most of the cars look the same. Andretti only has to copy, let's say, the Red Bull thing, and that's it. They can at least be not like 3 seconds behind. You can see, for example, when a team like Toyota joined in the early 2000s, they needed like 2 or 3 seasons just to develop a car from scratch. But of course, Toyota was a constructor. They had the budget. So yeah, Andretti, I think, is the best positioned one. They have been in F1, father and son. Marco hasn't been, but anyway, perhaps he could join with the father's team, right? They have this Cadillac thing on the agreement. However, Cadillac, of course, will not be doing the engines. Probably Andretti will try to join either with a Ford, for example, that will join with Red Bull, right? Either Ford, I would guess, or with Mercedes or Honda or something like this. With Honda, mainly because in IndyCar they have a partnership with Honda, right? It would be good. So I think this is the best team. They have the infrastructure, the experience, and everything. I think this is candidate number 1, right? Andretti. We have also Hightech. Hightech is, for those who don't know and only follow F1, Hightech is a formation for lower junior formulas, such as F2, F3, and others, right? Is a team with a lot of experience. Perhaps not at first level competition such as F1 or IndyCar in the case of Andretti, right? But still, they have the experience. They are already in the circle of the FIA. they know people. Everybody knows everybody, right? Like Fred Vasseur came from what's the name of this team of F2? I forgot. Anyway, or Christian Horner, for example, as well came from F2. Came from Arden, right? Or ART. Sorry, Vasseur came from ART. Anyway, so they already know people, the mechanics and everything. Probably they would have to start from scratch, but again, with this new kind of F1 cars, it's not that difficult where you have to design everything on your own. Most of the car is the same for everybody, right? So high-tech could be another option with how they are already in the circle of the F1 in lower categories, but anyway, they are already there. Then we have another one, and this is a little bit more difficult to make it happen, even though there was a big thing with this a couple of years ago. Panthera Team Asia. Where is this coming from? I don't know if it's something with China and Thailand, being they have this Chang thing, right? Anyway, it's a formation made by one guy that was part of PMR or some team like that also wanted to join F1, but anyway. And they had some Asian backups to have a full Asian F1 team, something like that. Something like Andretti with full American, but with Asia. Of course, they do not have the experience, the backup, and all these things that perhaps teams like Andretti or Hightech do have. But it's another option. If F1 really wants to open to the Asian market, having an F1 team from Asia could be a thing. There's not much thing known about it because it went silent after this big thing of intentions to join F1. We don't know if there is a plan to join still. They say yes, it's kind of like dormant, but it's still there. It's another option. I don't think it's going to happen, this one, but it could happen. Perhaps if the FIA allows more than one team to join the F1, right? Perhaps could be Andretti and Panthera Team Asia, something like this. And recently there was this equal formula. For those who don't know who this guy is Craig Pollock. Craig Pollock is the founder of the before known BAR at the beginning. Then it was BAR Honda. Then Honda purchased the team. And we know what happened. Brown GP, Mercedes, blah, 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 right? So this guy created the team. And now he's trying to come back with this equal formula thing. What is equal formula? Equal formula would be a team that would be split 50-50 of gender. All the mechanics, all the engineers, all the, cooks and everything. His intention is to fully apply this equal opportunity thing of genders, which is not equal anymore because you're not given the same opportunity to talent, right? 50% of the team would be women, 50% of the team would be men. For every single position of the team, including, according to him, the drivers. However, the driver is more difficult to happen because you need super license points of the FIA provides for that. And so far, there is not a single female driver that is even close to obtaining the super license. So that is going to be more difficult. That is his idea, his dream, his intention, whatever you want to call it. So this is the option. Of course, this equal formula thing is very attractive for the F1 because they want to try to give this equal opportunity image to the world, right? F1 is a very male sport, let's call it. Of course, there are females now, right? They're like the Red Bull strategist that is very famous now. And there are many other engineers and stuff that perhaps you don't see, but they are at the factories as well. But in general, the team mechanics and everything, of course, you need physical power to use the wrenches to change the tires and stuff, but still, they are very male teams, right? Females usually, in the Grand Prix stuff, at least, have more of a PR and these kind of roles, right? More away from the box, let's say. So his idea would be that. And again, having a female driver so far looks very, very difficult, seeing that no female driver is even close to getting the super license. They have the W Series, a competition that was created for women, and some of them were against it, but still, if you see how women develop in junior formulas, you will see that in karting they can fight, but as soon as the cars start to get requiring some physical power, women cannot fight with men anymore. If you see women in F2 or GP2 or whatever series you saw in the past, you will see that they are not even close to being in the top 10. In the top 10, and to get the super license, you need victories and podiums. So I have nothing against it. I mean, if there is a woman, and women have talent, of course, maybe same or more as men in some cases, but that's another story. So it's not about opportunities, it's about capability, and the W Series was created for a reason. Of course, if there is a woman that can beat and can win F2 and everything and has the capability to be as strong and fast as men, for sure she should be given the equal opportunity to try to be in F1. It will not be equal because, of course, as soon as you have a woman like this, every single team will be fighting for signing her so they can get this extra merchandising, whatever you want to call it, right? But anyway, this is another team I think could have an idea. And seeing that Craig Pollock is actually someone who made a team from scratch before, like BAR, and has the experience with F1 and he could be another interesting option for F1. And let's see other cases of teams that joined F1 recently and what happened to them. We have the Haas team, which I already spoke about. Haas joined F1 under the condition, and only condition, that the FIA modified the rules, because before, every team should be responsible to manufacture every single component of the car, except for the engine and perhaps the gearbox and these kind of things. And Haas, being, for example, as Andretti, as prestigious in the USA with IndyCar and other formulas, perhaps, put the only condition to join F1 that they could purchase parts from other teams. In this case, they made a deal with Ferrari to purchase like the back train, suspensions, and stuff, so they didn't have to manufacture or design everything, at least from scratch. So they could join the grid, not starting like 2 seconds behind the leaders, right? They could join, and we saw what happened when they debuted in the Australian Grand Prix. They were in the points at once. Many teams complained, such as Renault, now Alpine, and McLaren and others. Like, how can they allow this? This is not a competition, right? But anyway, Haas had some financial troubles in the past, but thanks to the new rules, they are doing okay, right? And also the rule changes and everything, they got a lot of wind. They sacrificed the whole 2021 season so they could be where they are right now with a, let's say, point fighting car, right? We saw Hülkenberg, for example. We saw Magnussen last year. Anyway, so Haas, they have been surviving since 16, something like this. So they have been surviving, and now they are there, right? So this is, I would say, the last private team that joined F1. And before, we have other two cases. One of them is Virgin, and the other one is Lotus. Or they call themselves Lotus, even though there was a dispute about the name, whatever you want to call it. This team was from Indonesia, if I am not mistaken, and the other one, Virgin, is from the UK, from Richard Branson, for those who don't know it. Both of them owners of airline companies, and they made these teams, right? They started from scratch, and we saw what happened to them. They had to design everything. They didn't have a wind tunnel, which means they had to rent the wind tunnel. However, they were also basing a lot of stuff, at least in the case of Virgin, if I am not mistaken. They were basing a lot of their design and things in the computer, let's call the fluid wind tunnel, whatever. Instead of putting it in the real, they wanted to prove that you can make a F1 car just by computers. And you can see how they failed. And it shows that how before having an F1 team was extremely costly. For someone as rich as Richard Branson and the owner of the Lotus team to fail to support the costs of an F1 team shows how expensive it is and how difficult it is. They were always the last. Of course, before it was more difficult. You could not purchase parts from other teams. And how they struggled and they disappeared. It didn't make sense to have such a big spending when you cannot progress in the field, right? So these are the two teams in the stage of 2010 to 2014, something like this, that joined the grid, and they failed to survive, right? We have Super Aguri, another example. Similar to Haas, they joined with a cooperation with Honda to be like their, let's say, their B team. They were using Honda's previous season designs in chassis and everything with the current engine. So they could have Takuma Sato, the one on the right in the picture, and the Tesla driver at that time, Anthony Davidson, to be in the grid, right? As a Japanese team. As a second Japanese team, they already had Honda. They disappeared. It was very costly as well. This is in 2007, if I'm not mistaken, 2007, 2008. They only last 2 seasons. They disappeared. The first year, you can see, I think this is the car for the first year. It was the previous year's Honda car, which worked very well. But when they actually had to design everything from scratch, which was the following year, they failed a big time. And they didn't have the support from Honda anymore, because Honda as well was struggling due to the crisis at that time. Honda retired from F1, Super Aguri disappeared from F1. It was like a consequence, let's say, right? Without the support of Honda, Super Aguri disappeared. They were doing fine. Again, something similar to what happened with Haas. They had this support from Honda for chassis and all the stuff. So they didn't have to start from scratch, let's say. So they were able to fight kind of for points as well. At those times, only the first 8 people used to qualify for points, right? And you could see Takuma Sato fighting with Alonso in Canada, for example, for points and stuff. So it's an example of the Haas model of you purchase stuff so you can start competitive, not like Virgin and Lotus in this case. We have another team previous to that one. I would say Toyota was one of them, as I mentioned before, but Toyota came as a constructor. They had the budget and everything, and they struggled in the beginning, but then they managed to get there at some point in the later 2000s, and especially with the rule changes in 2009. Again, Toyota disappeared from F1 as well as Honda did, due to the crisis of those times. We have BAR, which I already mentioned, by Craig Pollock, right? They started the team in 1999. At the beginning, the car was gonna have these double decorations, similar to what they have in IndyCar, where one team can have different sponsorship, right? One of them was gonna be 555, which was gonna be the car of Ricardo Zonta, and the other half was gonna be Lucky Strike, which was gonna be the car of Jacques Villeneuve. However, F1 did not allow one team having 2 different sponsorships and liveries, so they had to do this kind of livery. And we saw that BAR actually was doing kind of okay, right? They started in 1999, was not the best car of the grid, was not the worst either. And then they made this cooperation with Honda to make it kind of like semi-official team, and they could fight. And then Honda purchased the team, and then sold it to Brown. Then Mercedes purchased it from from Brown. So the Mercedes team from today is what BAR started in 1999. The team did kind of okay. They had Jacques Villeneuve, which was world champion. They have Ricardo Zonta. Then they had Baton, and with Baton they have some kind of success before they disappeared as Honda, right? So this is like a success, let's say, starting from scratch and doing okay. You have Jordan, for example, that started in the 90s. The one that gave the opportunity to Schumacher, right? They made it kind of okay especially in the late 90s, and then in the early 2000s, especially after 2002, they started to go back in the grid. And when you go in this pit hole, ask Williams right now, it's difficult to get out of it. And they finally started selling the team, and the team was changing names for I don't know how many years, right? It was purchased, if I'm not mistaken, by Marussia and Spiker, and I don't know how many, Midland Racing, so many different names every year. There was a new ownership, and the team actually ended up disappearing, right? You also have Minardi, which was later purchased by Toro Rosso, by Red Bull to make it Toro Rosso, and now it's AlphaTauri. Anyway, and another example is Sauber. Sauber also joined F1 after they already had teams in other competitions, such as Le Mans, for example, right? More into prototypes other than F1 cars, or open seaters, however you want to call it. But Sauber is an example of how to do things, right? They started also more or less like Jordan in the early 90s, and they survived by especially making a cooperation with Ferrari as well for engines, and having drivers there such as Raikkonen, like Heidfeld. They later had Sergio Perez. They had Massa, Fisichella. Anyway, they had big names for the future. And they survived very well. They still are there as a team. Like these following years, until Audi can arrive in 2026, since Alfa Romeo is now off the game after 2023, they will be racing as Sauber once again. However, let's see how this goes. But Sauber is a success story, right? They were designing their own cars and everything. As a Ferrari B team, let's say, they had Red Bull before as a sponsorship, but anyway, it's a very successful story how they did it. And being one of the few teams that is not based or in the UK or in Italy, because most of the F1 teams reside in the UK. They are in Switzerland, very rare. But anyway, and again, like I said before, in the early 2000s, I think they built this wind tunnel that was 1-on-1 scale able to test. These are examples of how F1 teams can come into F1, and of course those times were different, where you had to do everything by yourself, right? But you could do everything by yourself. The costs were not that high. Now it's extremely expensive. Well, no, maybe perhaps with the cost cap, it's not that expensive anymore. You can get the funding for it, but anyway, still, starting a team from scratch might not be as easy as it looks like. So the best idea to come into F1 would be to follow, let's say, the Haas or the Super Aguri model by purchasing stuff from other teams that already have something, right? If Andretti comes into F1, perhaps with I don't know, Ford as an engine supplier, can they perhaps get stuff from Red Bull, like the powertrain, the rear of the car, blah blah blah, or is Red Bull willing to sell this to Andretti? If Hightech or Panthera come into F1, how are they going to make it? Probably they will follow the same thing. They will purchase parts from other teams and they will have to design them themselves, some of the thing. But you can copy, like almost all of the teams are doing, the model from the winning car, right? The Red Bull, as Aston Martin did. Perhaps mainly getting one of the engineers from Red Bull so they can apply the design concepts in their cars. But anyway, what do you think? Should F1 admit new teams? If so, how should they come in? Seeing that 2026 will have a big regulation change, should you join in 2026 and be developing the car these 3 years? What do you think? If you have any opinions of it, leave it in the comments. If the grid should stay with 10 cars, which is ideal according to F1 before, now they changed the speech, or should they include once again 12 teams so you can have 24 drivers? What do you think? Leave it in the comments, and anyway, see you in other episodes about it.